Welcome to Unlocking the Power of ChatGPT and AI in Test Automation Next Steps, presented by Applitools. Our speaker today is Anand Bagmar. Anand is a software quality evangelist with more than 20 years in the software testing field. He is passionate about shipping a quality product and specializes in quality strategy and execution, as well as building automated testing tools, infrastructure, and frameworks. Anand is a contributor to the Selenium project, writes testing-related blogs, and has built a number of open source tools related to software testing. A true tester at heart, Anand is also very curious, so you're in for a treat today as he shares with you his recent explorations. And with that, Anand, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Pam. Hello, everyone. Welcome. As the title indicates, we are going to focus more on test automation in this session, but there is more than just automation that we are going to be talking about. So stay tuned. Pam has already spoken enough about me. I'm not going to do anything more on that. Just pointing out my Twitter ID and LinkedIn in case if you are interested in connecting offline and continuing the conversation. So with that, let's get started with the session today. The agenda is jam-packed. There's a lot of things we want to do. First, we are going to do a quick recap of the webinar we did a couple of months ago that was Unleashing the Power of ChatGPT and how that has taken the world over by storm. We'll do a quick recap of that webinar, but a lot has changed since that time till today. And I want to bring you up to speed on what are some things related to testing, related to test automation that is of significance to us. And I will be sharing a lot of details on that as well. Then we are going to dive into a topic that is very close to my heart and I have also been very frustrated with is challenges of doing deterministic test automation and its relationship with flaky tests and how can AI really help and come to the rescue. And we'll talk about a different set of tools that could be leveraged to help solve that problem or at least reduce it significantly. As with anything, there are pros and cons of every approach, every tool, every technology. I do want to share with you what are the pitfalls of AI as we see it today based on what technology and tools that I have explored. We'll summarize and also look at what are the next steps, how you can really get started on these. And of course, keep your questions coming in the Q&A section. I will try to get to that along the way. If not, we definitely will have time at the end to discuss quite a few of those. Do a quick recap of the last webinar in case if you have not seen that or attended that one. What does ChatGPT do for us in the testing field? And for this, I had taken an example of testing an e-commerce application, for example, Amazon website in the USA geography. There's also a link that will be shared with you. It's also on screen if you want to catch that webinar in case you have missed it earlier. In that webinar, I focused on two main aspects from a testing perspective. One is from a testing approach mindset, which includes strategy, design, automation, and execution. And I dug deep into each of these areas and we saw concrete examples how ChatGPT can help us get to these objectives in an easier fashion, in a new way as well. And it was very interesting for sure, very eye-opening for me as I was using it, as I was doing my research as well. From an automation perspective, we saw online and ChatGPT was helpful to me. It was kind to me. There were no server issues at that time. I was able to access it. And we tried various different prompts to see how from an automation perspective as well, it can help us, it can guide us do things much more quickly. So we asked about good way to automate the test cases that were identified, and it gave us good insights on that. We asked it to implement some code to get started with implementing one of the tests that it had identified. And it gave us a pretty decent code using JUnit with Selenium Java and it had proper annotations before and after to handle those, and it was pretty good. We were able to add follow-up questions to say, okay, can you use WebDriver Manager with this to make the code even better and more robust, more scalable? And it was able to do that as well. What is automation without design patterns? It is code after all. So we did ask one of the most commonly used, most popular design pattern for test automation. We asked ChatGPT if it could implement the same test using the page object model, and it gave a fairly good implementation of that as well. So this was good from an automation point of view. We also looked at it from a test execution side of thing, various aspects around that, whether it is reporting or metrics. And this is where, at least in my mind, the answers were not as good as I was expecting. Maybe I was expecting too much. Maybe I was not asking the right question. There could be a lot of reasons for this. But based on the question I asked, the answer that I got, I was not very happy with that. But it gave me a good starting point nonetheless. Then we moved on from the testing perspective and test automation to how ChatGPT could help us in programming. Because automation, after all, is programming. So from a programming perspective, we saw various examples with respect to writing code. So given an example, given a problem statement, we asked it to give us a solution, and it took that problem statement, it gave us a pretty good solution. I was able to run the test, and the answers were as expected. The implementation was as expected based on the problem statement. That was great. We also tried some refactoring, given some complex piece of code, or in this case, a link to a GitHub repository. And this repository did not exist 2 years ago, which was sort of the cutoff for what data ChatGPT had based on its analysis. So I gave it a link to a GitHub repository, a specific file in the GitHub repository, and it was able to do refactoring on that as well, though I had not tried if that refactoring actually worked correctly or not. The doubts in my mind were looking at a class refactoring was good, but that class was used in context of various different ways the framework was implemented. I do not know if all those aspects were taken care of when the implementation was done. But it's a great start again. We also tried, instead of giving a link to a GitHub repository, can I paste a blob of code and asked it to refactor it? For large blobs of code, there were certain challenges that we faced. But again, there's a learning of what capabilities ChatGPT had and how do we work with that. We could give it a piece of code and ask it to reduce the complexity. And that was a very, very insightful thing, because a lot of struggle, a lot of time goes in trying to understand how to reduce the complexity of the code base. We have certain limitations. There is a certain mindset how the code has been written, or it has been written by someone else and we are scared to touch it and make changes. And here's a good way of getting a head start in that refactoring to see if it is going to help us or not. So refactoring was a good use case again. From a debugging point of view, we could give it a problematic piece of code and say, okay, there's some problem in this, fix it. This was amazing to me. Without any context, it was able to look at that code, fix the problem, and not only fix it, but also explain what was the error and how it has been fixed. So that was pretty amazing to me. So these were various different prompts that we tried in ChatGPT in the last webinar from a testing perspective, from a test automation perspective, and programming point of view. Then we also looked at certain tools in the AI space, which add a lot of value from a test automation point of view. Some of the tools that we looked at was Applitools Visual AI and the ultra-fast cloud. It's important to keep in mind that Applitools simplifies your functional testing. It is not only about visual testing. You continue to use your existing automation, and all the assertions are replaced by calls to Applitools, which takes care of your function and visual validations. Great thing about Applitools is that it works with dynamic content because none of our products are static products unless it's a blog of sorts. So visual AI handles dynamic content and it helps you focus on things that matter to the end users and you can take decision on that. And of course, visual AI works on web, mobile web, Android apps, native apps, iOS apps, and so on. To scale your execution, we also looked at how the ultra-fast test cloud can help us with cross-browser, cross-device testing. And these were some great tools that we looked at, along with a few others, that gave us some actionable points how we could get started in our journey to use these tools and get value from our testing and test automation perspective. The key takeaways that were summarized were there are a lot of tools, but you have to understand them and use them in your own context. Especially with tools like ChatGPT, you have to ask the right question to get a good answer. You ask a generic question, you will get a vague answer. As with any tool or technology, they have the limitation. You need to choose them wisely based on what is going to work for you. That is very important. And all said and done, the human mind and experience is still the essential ingredient in the SDLC, regardless what tool sets that you use. So that was a quick recap about what we did last time. Let's quickly look at what has changed in these few weeks. Most important things is ChatGPT became accessible on laptop, phone, and Raspberry Pi. You could run it, the AI models on your own devices as well, or smaller handheld devices as well. Google Bard was released as well during the time. Google Bard yet has a lot of limitations in my opinion, though. I was not able to play with it to try it out, mainly because it is accessible currently only in the US region. I'm based out of India. But Google Bard is based on the Lambda transformer model, and that is also going to catch up and maybe become better than ChatGPT. Who knows? These are going to be excellent tools in our repository that we should make use of going forward based on their strengths and limitations. Key thing to keep in mind, right now Bard is supported only in English language. It cannot continue conversations the way ChatGPT can, so you cannot ask follow-up questions and continue with it. And it has, in context of our session today from test automation perspective, it cannot help you with coding just yet. It will eventually get there is what I sense and what has been reported as well, but we don't know when that would happen. Unfortunately, though, when Bard was released, there was a big fiasco that happened. It was, if I can loosely call it, a mistake that happened. There was a factual error in the demo. And unfortunately, the way social media goes, takes things viral for good or bad. Unfortunately, in this particular case, it was a very bad mistake in terms of the market cap of Google, where they lost more than 100 billion because of that one thing. I'm sure it's gone way beyond that, and it's much better now. Also, what happened in these past 2 months or so is ChatGPT 4 was released. Earlier, when we did the webinar, it was version 3, 3.5, and now version 4 was released, where a big shift was on accepting images and text inputs and emitting text outputs based on the analysis of that. This was an amazing achievement, next big thing from ChatGPT that came across. And also what happened is they introduced ChatGPT Plus, which gave better reasoning, faster responses, higher availability to the users as well. So that's a commercial model from a ChatGPT perspective. While there was no change for free accounts, the Plus subscribers probably got more out of it. Also, the next big thing that happened along with this or around this same time was the support for plugins to be built on top of ChatGPT. And that has opened a huge set of opportunities, new and powerful ways of interaction with ChatGPT. So for example, And here, let's try and do a live demo to see if this really works or it continues to work. Live demos, it should be fun, right? So instead of showing the slide, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask ChatGPT and just give it a prompt of a site which has a problem statement. And this is interesting because without giving any specific question, ChatGPT is just taking that information, looking at the website, and it is explaining what is that site about, what is that link about. It is a programming question with some examples over there, and it is able to explain what it is. And here's a very new thing which I had not seen earlier today as well. When I had given the same prompt earlier, when I was preparing for this webinar, the code was not provided. It was just an explanation of the code. What I had to do is I had to say, implement the code for. I had to give this type of a prompt to get the code implementation done. Earlier, it was just an explanation of the code. And Python seems to be the favorite language for ChatGPT. Most of the coding solutions, if you do not provide a programming language, in most cases, I've seen Python is the programming language used in the answers or the solutions provided. And that's what has happened right now as well. I could very well say implement the same in Java, and it will do that as well. Now, here's something new that I am trying. I have not done this before, okay? Let's say write unit tests for the above code. I have not done this before, okay? So let's wait for it to complete. And let's see if it is going to be able to generate unit tests for us as well. Surprise. It is working. But again, it gave me unit tests for Python. It did not say, it did not use it for, give the unit test for Java. But it's fine. I can give another prompt saying, write the unit test for Java, right? It's good. It's good. So this was very interesting of how you can use a programming statement and generate code and look at generating solutions for that and generating tests for the same as well. Here's a screenshot of the type of response I got earlier today, where it was just explaining what all would happen for the programming statement. Okay, and this is what we saw again. You ask it to implement in a particular programming language, and it will do that. Now, one interesting thing that I saw earlier in the earlier webinar was the solution that it came up with was a for loop. It was not a recursion as was generated today afternoon for that matter. Let's go back and see what type of code was generated over here for Java. Is it recursion? Yes, this is recursion. Okay, so the algorithm definitely has evolved to give better responses or different types of responses. And that is something interesting to keep in mind as well. You may not get the same answer every time you ask it because the algorithm is also learning along the way. Okay, there is some more interesting ways of interaction. And let me show a demo of that instead of the slide again. What I am going to do is I have a link to one of the images from my blog. This is an image of the test automation pyramid. I'm just saying explain this image because for many, it might not be possible to understand or what the image really means. Maybe it was the image was shown as part of some of my one of my sessions where there was explanation, but it was not written down. So just given the image, it is explaining what that really means. And for your reference, I'll just show you what the image is. I'll open it up in a new tab. This is the image of a test automation pyramid. So it is explaining what that is. It is talking about the different layers of the pyramid. It is also talking about the non-functional tests, the user experience validations that are required as part of it. And why it is talking about these? Because the diagram, it actually talks about the NFRs. That was pretty impressive. I was blown away by this kind of capability. In fact, you could also do something more interesting. How many of you use architecture diagrams either for your product or for your automation framework? Here's an architecture diagram that I typically refer to when I have to build an automation framework. But for someone who's looking at this first time, they may not understand what that is. So I could ask ChatGPT to explain this framework to me. So I'm just going to say, explain the test automation framework architecture diagram over here. Now I'm giving it a little bit more context that this is about automation framework, and precise questions is going to help it give you better answers. You're not trying to trick the tool. If that is your intent, then you could do various other things and try to see where it is going to fail or not. You're trying to leverage tools to get value out of them. At least that's my intention. So I'm giving it as much context as possible to get the level of information that I need that is going to be helpful for me. Okay, so though I'm a tester, my mindset is not to break things or find defects. My mindset is to build a quality product. It's glass half full versus glass half empty, and there is merit in both of these. That's what makes us good testers. That's what makes it a good quality product eventually. So I asked a very specific questions, and it was able to explain to me the test layer, the business layer, the page objects. And the business layer is very interesting over here because this is a concept that I have come up with more than 10 years ago. Others might be calling it by some other name, but business layer is a very important way for me to implement my automation framework. So this is not something that has been written about a lot, but ChatGPT was able to understand that and give some explanation around that. How valid it is, how good or bad it is, you have to dig deeper, understand the topic much more thoroughly, and see it is going to get us value or not. Right? So these are some interesting things that have come up with ChatGPT 4, where you can give a link to an image and it can give you explanations around that. And that is a very powerful way to proceed. Okay. The other big thing that has happened is the plugin ecosystem. With ChatGPT 4, now you can build plugins on top of their APIs. It's subscription based, and there is a waitlist for it as well, I believe. I've signed up, I've requested to join that, but I'm still in the waitlist. It is going to take time. But already, if you just try to find the type of plugins that have been built on top of this capability, already you will find probably hundreds of such plugins, which you can use in your applications or from your browser to get more value. The other interesting thing that has happened is new products have started leveraging ChatGPT 4 as well. When we did the earlier webinar, just around that time, Microsoft Teams started leveraging ChatGPT internally, or at least that was a plugin or an additional capability that you could add into Microsoft Teams. But now a lot of products are actually using ChatGPT as its backbone or a critical part of their architecture to provide more functionality and capability. And that is great. The thing to keep in mind over here is the quality of responses. I have had mixed opinions around this. I have seen a lot of errors in the recent past about network error, or something has gone wrong, or there is no response from the server. I don't know what could be the reason for this. I'm not a ChatGPT Plus member. I'm just using the free version. Maybe it's something related to that, the capacity load, something around that. But I have not seen any pop-up saying that the server is busy. I was always able to access it, though the timeout was quite short. So if I have to go back and issue a prompt, most likely it will fail. I have to refresh the session, and then I will be able to issue new prompts. The quality of responses is inconsistent or different, maybe because it is learning and getting better over time. In some cases, the responses might not be as good as before for that matter as well. On the left is what I had from earlier webinar. On the right, for the same prompt, I'm getting different responses. Similar, but different. Also, from a programming point of view, I already spoke about this probably. When we asked it to implement a simple test using Selenium, Java, and JUnit, it created the test with the before and after hook, which is the right way of implementing the test. You don't want your boilerplate code to be embedded in the test, hence increasing duplication. However, when I asked it to implement the test today, the annotations, the hooks were not there. Everything was in one test method. Now it's a small thing. I could issue a new prompt saying implement the above using proper annotations or before and after hooks, and I'm pretty sure it would do that for us. But by default, it did not do that, and that was a difference. There's, of course, GitHub CoPilot, but new things have happened from the GitHub ecosystem. GitHub Copilot X is coming up. Again, I am in waitlist. I don't have access to that yet. But GitHub is coming up with a lot of new interesting products from a developer experience perspective. Do check out GitHub Next to get more insights on that. There are also a lot of different IDEs that are coming up based on AI that is going to make your productivity higher. The last thing I want to talk about on what's new is AutoGPT. I'm not sure how many of you have heard, but I came across it very recently, and I was surprised to see how popular it has become already. So AutoGPT is a public GitHub repository by this person. Sorry, I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I don't want to mess up the name. But it is leveraging ChatGPT model in its backbone, and you can autonomously drive to implement iteratively what you want to do. It utilizes ChatGPT, as I mentioned, using its APIs. It can iterate over its own prompts and keep building upon them. So it's a self-learning. Once you give a prompt, it is self-learning based on that, based on specific inputs that you give. It can read files, browse the web, review its own results, and combine them to take further decisions. There are, of course, limitations of sorts as well. How complicated the task is, it will work or not. It depends on the prompts that you give. But why am I talking about AutoGPT? I don't have any concrete example over here, but this is definitely something that is becoming very popular. Why do I say that? This repository already has more than 39.5 thousand stars, more than 5,000 forks. And all this has happened since 17th of March. It is less than 1 month, probably 3 weeks now, or almost a month, 4 weeks, right? That is huge popularity in a very short time. So I'm pretty sure it is going to start solving some very interesting use cases. So it's something to understand more about and try and explore it if that is in your areas of interest. Now, let's move into the actual challenges in automation and how can we leverage these tools to get better. Let's take it a step ahead based on what we have discussed so far. Now, this is a very open-ended question, and I'm going to quickly get more precise about the challenges in automation to focus on a very specific area. Otherwise, we'll spend the whole day or night just discussing what challenges come up in automation. So what I'm going to discuss with you is challenges related to slow and flaky tests and its execution, suboptimal or inefficient automation code itself, and incorrect or non-contextual test data, which again causes an impact in our automation. These are the areas we are going to try and address in the rest of the session now. Let's start off with flaky tests. Now, anyone who's been doing testing and doing automation is not new to flaky tests. Flaky tests are something which work sometimes, which do not work the other time. And it's not very easy to figure out why did it not work in one case and how did it end up working in the other case. It's a huge mystery most of the time. And many a times, unfortunately, the way to solve this is a very, very bad practice of using a retry listener where you automatically rerun the failed tests and see if they pass. And not see, rather, you hope, you pray that they pass so that you do not have to investigate why they have failed. You do not have to explain to anyone why the tests have failed. Retry listener is a horrible way to address flaky tests. Please do not use it. If you dig deeper and look at what could be the potential reasons for tests to be flaky, there could be many. These are some of the reasons that I have explained over here. We are going to focus on a specific type of flaky test, and that is related to the UI or locator changes, which also happens more often than what we would like to see in our projects. But the first question is, before we try to answer the question of handling flaky tests, we need to know which are our flaky tests. How do you identify them? And for this, one of a very good resource is, in my opinion, reportportal.io. It's a reporting server, but which has AI and ML based capabilities. All you need to do is, first of all, be consistent in your automation in terms of how you're logging your test results. If your tests are failing, how you're failing them, what type of messages are you providing in the errors. So you need to be consistent in your implementation. And then when you send the test results to report portal as part of your integration, automatically data keeps going in report portal. And you can create interesting widgets in report portal dashboard. One of that, which is out of the box, is identifying which are the top flaky tests in your automation suite. And you can see over here that some tests are 46 point, almost 47% flaky. Some of them are 12, 13% flaky. So the number varies. But the beauty of this dashboard is you do not have to dig deep to find out if my tests are failing, which are the flaky tests. You have that information up front. You can directly click on that test, get to the results and see which test passed, which failed, and what the differences are in them. So one big thing about solving a problem is acknowledging there is a problem. So acknowledging and knowing which are your flaky tests is going to help you fix your flaky test. Now that you know which tests are flaky, and as I mentioned, we will focus on failures due to locator changes. Let's see how we can solve this particular challenge. First, let me demonstrate to you what this challenge means, right? So for this, again, fingers crossed, give me some best wishes over here. I'm going to do a live demo again. I'm going to run some tests. I have a simple Selenium test that is implemented. This is going to use the Chrome browser, and it is going to run the test against the Applitools shopping website, which is a demo website. The test, the compilation is happening. The browser is going to launch eventually, fingers crossed. Okay, running the test. Browser is starting. Let's see if it starts in the same monitor or a different monitor. It started over here. Okay. Now the test is going, it goes to the shopping site, it clicks on a product, and it is going to add this product to cart. That is what the test is about. The test completed successfully. Okay. Now let's say there is a new build that was deployed, and you want to run the test against that new build again, right? To make sure everything is going fine. So I'm running the same test again. In this case, let's see what happens. Ran, browser is launched, clicked on the product, and the test failed. Why did it fail? It failed over here, let's see, unable to locate element. And if you dig deeply, you will figure out that this element, the locator has changed. Of course, in this case, I have simulated this change in order to keep the demo light and quick. But have you seen such problems before? Can I get a thumbs up if you have seen such problems before in your tests? Great, I see a lot of thumbs up. Thank you for sharing your experiences. So now how do you tackle this issue, right? First, the most common thing, unfortunately, is, oh, the test failed. Oh, it's because of the locator change. Let me go and find the new locator and update my test. I will push the changes in my version control system and run the tests again, and then it will pass. But the next time again it happens, the cycle repeats. It's a very manual and tedious activity, and you do not get the feedback the way you want or expect from these. So how do we address this challenge? And this is where I want to introduce you to the next tool in the AI space, that is the Applitools Execution Cloud. This is the world's first self-healing test infrastructure. I'm not going to read the slides. The slides will be available to you. The recording is going to be available to you. But what this is going to do is it is going to not just run your test in a cloud, it not also has self-healing capabilities. You are going to see a lot of interesting things happen as part of using this capability from Applitools. It is going to help you run functional and visual tests against the browsers or devices, and the self-healing capability will help reduce the test failures because of locator changes. The benefits are going to be tremendous because it's going to be very easy to set up, and of course there's less flakiness and fast execution. In a talk, let's see in action what this means. Nothing like seeing a running test to see what the capability is. So now in this case, I'm doing one small change in my framework, and that is I'm going to, instead of creating a Chrome driver like before, I'm going to create a new remote web driver by pointing to the Applitools execution cloud. That is the only change that I need to do in my execution. And what I also have as part of this execution is I've integrated Applitools eyes along with my automation. In the earlier test, I had it disabled, but now since I'm going to run it in the Applitools cloud, might as well get more value from this execution, right? Now what happens is the test is running in the cloud, so there's no browser that has launched over here. But what we are going to see is, I can find where I had that window. There it is. So in our Applitools dashboard, I see this test is running. Okay, let's see how far it has executed. Yeah, should be almost done. Now this I'm running on the Applitools cloud, public cloud, which is in the US. I'm based out of India. I'm also using a lot of bandwidth from my machine for video streaming and the conference itself. So that does take an effect in terms of latency. But now this would run over here, and the result is going to be something like this. I see the test run, and I also see visual validation happen as part of that automatically. This was a new test that executed. First time the test executed, there is no baseline, so it is captured over here, and the test would run correctly the next time on. Okay, live demo, right? Something is not right today. Oh, there it is. The test passed. It just took a long time because of latency. So now you see the baseline, which was captured when the test ran the first time, which was a couple of hours earlier. And the test ran right now. It compared it with it. I'm getting more value from my execution by just running it in the cloud. The interesting thing over here, though, is you will notice this magic wand. That indicates the self-healing that has happened. Remember when the test in Chrome failed on my machine? It was because the locator had changed. When I ran it in the execution cloud, I see that the original locator is not there. However, it has healed that locator and it found a new locator that was used to interact with the application automatically. And the test passed as a result. Because from a functionality perspective, everything is fine. Why should change in locators mean a defect in your product? It's an internal detail. It does not matter. You should be able to use it directly. Now, let's try and make this even more interesting. I'm going to try running this again. Slightly different command. And I'll show you the result of this test. But while it is happening, I'll show you the result from the earlier test when I ran that. I changed one flag in my test to say I want to use the Applitools ultra-fast grid along with the self-healing. Now, self-healing is enabled by default. I don't need to do anything different. I just provided new additional browser configuration to my test, and the test ran just once, but we are getting the visual validation across from all the different devices or browsers that I have configured automatically. Now, if you see, this test took 45 seconds to run. The single browser, that was a bad example, that took 1 minute 30 seconds to run. In fact, when you're running it at scale, it is becoming even faster to get the test results across all your different browsers and devices. So this is what the self-healing capability can do for you. Very easy to set up, less flakiness, fast execution, and in the dashboard you get feedback if there was self-healing used in this test execution or not, along with all the different AI capabilities that you already had. Okay. Some more information about self-healing, but we'll move on. There is a webinar that is coming up soon from Applitools, which will talk in more detail about this. So please do attend that. The next part that I want to now speak about is suboptimal or inefficient automation. For this, I'm going to use a different set of tools. You may have used these before, but let me show you what it would mean. I'm going to use GitHub CoPilot to help generate a new test and to auto-generate code as well. What does that mean? If I go back to my test, this was a test that I had add to cart, right? I have GitHub Copilot plugin enabled in my IDE in IntelliJ. Automatically, I'm not typing anything. I just did enter and GitHub Copilot is giving me a prompt, what test would you like to add? And it is giving me a suggestion what test I should add. I did add to cart. So it's saying maybe you want to implement the test remove from cart. Okay. I just do a tab. I wait for it and automatically the code has come up for remove from cart. Do you see what has happened over here? I did not press tab so that suggestion went away. Let me do it again. And I just press tab and the test is implemented. I didn't even have to do anything other than, of course, integrate GitHub Copilot, which, by the way, I should be clear about it. It's not a free tool. It is a free trial for a limited period, and then it is based on subscription. But if you are someone who's writing a lot of code, maybe this can be very helpful for you. Now, is this test going to run directly? I do not know. But how can I find out? I'm just going to run it again. I'll just run the test. And in this case, I will run it in Chrome on my local machine. I'll not run it in Applitools. So I can see the browser launch and how it is going to work. For that matter, though, even for self-healing tests, you could download the video of the execution, the WebDriver commands, and the console logs as well, so you can see what the execution was. Okay. Now, I don't know if this remove from cart test is going to run successfully or not. This is auto-generated code anyhow, by the way, right? So it selected some product. I don't know what product it selects. It selected the first one itself, and it failed. It failed because the locators are incorrect. Okay. It assumed the locators would be something similar to my earlier test. Now, how do I fix that? This is where the next tool I want to talk about, how it can help. And for those who might have not realized, I'm using JetBrains Aqua, which is an early access program IDE. You can also integrate Aqua as a plugin with IntelliJ as well, IDEA as well, and you will be able to use this. Now what I'm going to do is Command-Shift-A, very important to learn shortcuts to make your IDE very powerful and make use of the power of the IDE, right? So Command-Shift-A, open the actions pop-up. I'm going to select Web Inspector. In this Web Inspector, I'm going to say, okay, what is my URL? Let me enter my URL over here. I'm going to load the page. On this page, what do I want to do? I want to find the locator for, let's say, this particular item, right? So I'm going to inspect this item. And there we go. I'm seeing, it's almost like developer tools integrated over here, right? I'm going to see all the different locators that are available for this. And I can also test it out from here as well. So instead of, I don't like to use star, it is going to make my locator inefficient. I'll say image. Can I find it? Yes. If I do a typo, it is incorrect. Okay, image is correct. And this is a good one, a good locator. Now what I can do is, if I do a right click on this locator, I can say copy locator or add element to code. Add element to code by either with classes, tag with classes, tag with all classes, CSS, CSS all, XPath, and so on. Let's say if I use CSS and it has created a web element for me with that particular ID. You see how easy it is becoming to do automation right from your ID. You're able to load your application in the ID, you're able to interact with it and implement code along with that. That I think is very powerful, and it can help us tremendously going forward. Okay, so with this, you could, depending on how your framework is implemented, you could say, yes, I am using find by. So let me just import those statements and use that. Or maybe I'll say, no, I do not like to use find by. I'm just going to use this directly over here. I'll say driver dot find by dot css selector and do that. In fact, if you notice, this is another very interesting thing that the IDE is doing for me. And for that matter, I don't know if it is happening because of GitHub CoPilot or Aqua. Maybe it is GitHub CoPilot. I have certain things copied to clipboard. I come over here. I've just clicked. I've not done anything yet. I press driver, and automatically GitHub Copilot is giving me what I probably want to do. Now this is incorrect for me, so I'm going to change this by .css, and I just paste it over here. So a lot of code completion starts coming through for you as well using tools correctly. But as we saw in the example, what solution comes up may not be accurate, may not be what you want. So it's not that you can blindly just choose what is happening and proceed with that. It might not work for you. So what we have seen so far, just to recap, we've used GitHub Copilot to generate tests. We have seen how GitHub Copilot can also implement tests or write code for you as well. If I just say wait for, this is a method, it is automatically saying how much time should I wait for. If I say eyes dot, let's see, yeah, it is saying, okay, tech window. Can it do something else? I don't know. The context becomes important. If I say eyes dot over here, it is saying add to cart. So it is not just giving the same thing again and again, right? It is looking at the context of your test and trying to figure out what might be going on to help you generate that code and use that code as well. Okay. So what this means is we are able to leverage Copilot to generate tests, to create new tests, to generate code or code snippets for that matter. And we also saw how Aqua could be used to identify locators and directly embed that in your framework. The other interesting thing that Aqua has is if you want to generate new classes, I'll just delete these to avoid the compile failure. If you want to generate a new class, and let's say you want to generate a new page object class, I can say, okay, this is a page object that I want to create. So it is automatically suggesting the name of the page as well, the URL, if it is required. And there's some templates as well that you can say what you want, what type of pages you want to create. So you can update use these templates or create your own one to generate page objects correctly. Okay. So you have Selenium, Selenite, Fluent Linium, Atlas, JDI, and various others. So let's say I use a Java page object. I create that. Okay. Do not add it to Git. And it has created that page automatically for me. So boilerplate code is done for you automatically. Now, bear in mind, the page factory is not a very efficient implementation. And this is coming from Simon Stewart and Titus. These are committers on the Selenium WebDriver project. This was implemented as an example, but because people started using it, they didn't use it as an example, they started using it as an implementation in their code. This is not a very efficient way. There are better ways to create your page objects and instantiate or use locators. That's a separate topic for discussion though. But Aqua is able to generate page objects based on that page factory pattern. Okay, that again can be useful for you based on how your framework is structured and how you want to use this. Okay, so this was about Aqua. And if you go to the jetbrains.com/aqua page, they also have a very good short preview video, just a couple of minutes. I highly encourage you to take a look at that because it does have support for APIs and various other things that you can leverage to make your automation faster, implementation faster. Okay. Moving on, test data. Many a times you need test data which is very contextual to your application. There are a lot of libraries that have been available for a long time. So I'm not going to speak about those. Those are still good if it works in the context of your framework of your application. But I want to showcase what these tools can do from a test data perspective as well. So we are going to use Aqua first to look at the page, the test data generation. Let's say I want to enter some text over here. Instead of typing, I could just right click. There is an option, generate test data. And these are the defaults that Aqua is giving to you. What type of text do you want to generate? Maybe I want a full sentence. So, okay, it has given me a full sentence. Maybe I want to use a full address. And here's a full address. I don't know if it is a valid address or not, but here's a full address. It did not ask me for which country, so the format changes as well, right? So you need to think about that as well. But this is an interesting capability to generate test data to be used as part of your implementation. Of course, you would not want to hard code your data inside the test. What if you want to run the test against multiple environments or the data might be dynamic? So you want to make sure your test data strategy is efficient. The other way what you could do is you could ask ChatGPT, give me, let me just copy that, it will be faster. Generate 5 valid addresses. I'll just say 2 valid addresses near Central Park. This is the error that I was speaking about, right? Timeout has happened. I just need to refresh it. Hopefully I get connected immediately. Yes, I did. I send the prompt. My prompt got lost, is it? Okay, there we go. And it is able to do that. These are valid addresses in a particular location. What if I ask for, if I want an invalid address, give me just 2 invalid addresses. And this is something which, this is very weird. This is very, very weird. Earlier when I tried this, it told me it cannot generate invalid data because it can be used incorrectly and can cause harm. It cannot generate invalid data. However, it generated a fake data. Now there's a difference between invalid and fake, but I don't know what the distinction in ChatGPT's mind is around this area. But it definitely told me that I cannot generate an invalid address. And it is able to do that right now. It is very surprising. Here's the pin code. The zip is all zeros, so it is invalid. But this is a very different aspect of what we are seeing. The other aspect that you might have is maybe you just want different ISBNs for use in your search engine for testing. So just give 5 top seller authors. I don't know if this is really top sellers or not. I don't know. Maybe I don't care. But this is valid information that I can use in my automation and proceed. Okay. So we saw ChatGPT and we saw Aqua, how it can generate the data. And also CoPilot, for that matter, generates the data which we saw already, right? So we could say send keys. Do I have any send keys over here? Driver dot find element by something. And I'm saying send keys, and it is automatically generating data for me. I don't know if it is supposed to be two or should it be some text. Maybe if I type something, it might give more. Yeah, it is giving alphanumeric as well. Okay. So using these combinations of tools can give you interesting ways how to generate your data as well. It's important to have a very good test data strategy. Otherwise, your automation can become very painful and limiting as well from a value perspective. Okay. So let's quickly move on to the next section about what are the potential pitfalls of AI based on what we have seen so far. First of all, is thinking that AI will solve all the problems. These are just tools and technologies. We have seen in the past 2 months how quickly things have evolved and changed. It is going to change probably at the same pace or even at a faster pace going forward, at least for some time, till there is some kind of a plateau that comes into the space. But it is not going to solve all the problems. You still have to use the tools, technology contextually, consciously, and think about what the implications are of using that. Second, it can result in superficial knowledge because there's so much code generated automatically. The test is generated automatically. I don't even need to think what type of test am I implementing or what is the logic that has been implemented because the code was auto-generated for me or it was optimized for me as well. That's a problem. You should not do that. You should still understand what has been generated. Make sure that is what you are looking for. There was a lot of concern, and this is something that was shared in the earlier webinar as well, that AI will take away a lot of jobs. And there were a lot of different articles during that time, Jan, Feb time, about AI taking over a lot of jobs. And I'm tending to agree in certain way that it will take away a lot of jobs if you do not evolve and get better at using these tools to make your job easier. If you want to continue doing the same thing what you were doing earlier, then there is going to be a way that tools technology can replace a lot of that automatically. But if you can leverage the tools and technologies to do better at what you're doing, then you're making that an asset and not a liability. Okay. The biggest concern of all today, though, is data privacy. There are numerous examples of how internal secrets, proprietary information has been leaked to the open world because of using AI algorithms that you do not understand or AI tools that you do not understand well enough. You will see a lot of different such examples. A big news item was where accidentally some Samsung employees tried one of the AI generative tools and they ended up exposing the internal proprietary information out to the world. It was not the intention, it was a mistake, but that did happen. And that can create a lot of pain for organizations and individuals as well. A lot of decisions are probably already taken. I didn't even have to think about what test I want to do when the decision is taken. The tool has given me the test with the code, what I want to implement. It's not even making me think anymore, and that's a problem. And that is because it is reading a lot into what I have already done to have those decisions ready. Because of these issues, a lot of countries, a lot of organizations are banning the use of ChatGPT and similar tools to avoid these issues coming up. So let's summarize. AI in automation is getting very interesting. I was a big skeptic about AI in the space of testing and automation. That level of skepticism has reduced significantly. I'm not saying it's gone, but it has reduced significantly. This space is very interesting. What you need to do is step up, embrace the technology, or you will get left behind. That is a problem which you should try and avoid. Manually repeated work should definitely be avoided. Leverage the power of these tools to make your work more interesting, make it faster, and proceed. Automation cocktail is the way forward. I showed a bunch of different tools, and there will be many more tools available which you are aware of already, probably, that you can use in combination to make your work interesting and solve the problem in a better way. It is your taste, your recipe. It's not about what someone else is doing. You can choose what you want to get the best value. You definitely now need to start thinking, if you have not been doing so already, build versus buy versus reuse. You have to focus on the ROI of what you are doing, what is the value you are generating. You have to choose wisely from these combinations to make a good solution for yourself. And lastly, you need to be agile. It is not the agile methodology that we are talking about, that I follow these ceremonies and procedures, whatever, or certifications to make my team agile. No, this is about truly being agile, where you need to learn, you need to evolve, you need to iterate, you need to communicate, you need to collaborate based on what new things are happening in the industry, learn along the way, use it, see how it is going to help you become better. And if it doesn't, try something else. But being agile is going to be very important as individuals to learn and do things better. So use these opportunities to upskill, evolve, be creative and innovative for yourself and for your teams. The approach that I typically take is, I think of, if my job has become mundane, I'm doing the same set of things over a period of time, I ask myself the question, how can I complete the same quantum of work in shorter time? That is what is going to lead to learning, creativity, and innovation. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time in listening to me, share my thoughts and experiences. And Pam, I hand this back over to you to see if we have time for questions and what else we might have. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Anand. That was a great presentation. We have so many questions and so many comments. I did want to share the results of some of the polls that we mentioned. We asked earlier in the session, given the privacy concerns, how comfortable are you with using AI tools and automation? Let me get that up, get the results up on the screen. So it looks like about 33% are somewhat comfortable, but 25% are not sure. There's a couple other polls. Be sure to pop over there and answer those. All right, Anand, let's see what kind of questions we have.
Sure.
All right, I'll start with this first one from Michael. Michael wants to know to avoid to disclose company intellectual properties, is it not better to build a private ChatGPT or large language model to use it and train it for test automation inside the company while securing the privacy?
Great question. Hey, Michael. Hi. Great to see your question here. I know you cannot speak, but it's great to connect with you over here. You're absolutely right. That is the way a lot of organizations are proceeding. They are hosting or setting up private GPT-like infrastructure and training the algorithms based on that. And that is absolutely, or I shouldn't say absolutely, nothing is absolute these days, right? It could change tomorrow. But that is the way a lot of organizations are moving, setting up their own private infrastructure to get value of AI. And I think that's a good way to proceed, at least for now.
There were a number of comments underneath that question as well about the issues involved in that. So this is something that I think will evolve for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, we have another question. This is from Leonid. What do you think about feeding commercial data, requirements, code, et cetera, to ChatGPT and/or OpenAI data privacy connected? Feeding commercial data to these types of events.
Yeah, feeding public data is okay because it's out in the public space anyway, right? But commercial data could be public or it could be private. And that could become an issue. So, but what I believe ChatGPT at least has done, it has used its vast resources to crawl and understand a lot of the public GitHub repositories and information available out in the open space. Now, the problem is we do not understand enough about how it is using the data that or the questions that we are asking it. It is constantly learning, as we've seen in other examples today already. It is constantly learning about it. So if you feed in a very unique type of question which it has never come across before, the algorithm is intelligent to learn from that. It might give you the wrong answer, but it is going to learn based on your follow-up questions, and it is going to use that information to answer someone else's similar question. It may or may not show the details of who asked that question, why was it asked, and so on. But there have been security issues related with that as well that have been reported, where I think it was it for Bard or for ChatGPT, where the initial set of questions to say what not to respond to was asked, and it was asked to clear those off. So it's very interesting ways how vulnerabilities can be exposed over here. So commercial data, if it is out in the open, then it's not a problem. But if you're asking it a question based on proprietary information, think negative in this case that it might be used for other learning as well and be shared with someone else as well. So be on the safer side.
Okay. Early on, Sebastian asked, what version of ChatGPT did you use for these examples?
So I used, this is where I'm slightly confused. I used the free version. That part I'm sure of. There's no confusion in that. I did not put my card details for it. But is it using ChatGPT 4 or the older version? I'm not sure, because in some places on their blog, I saw that for free users, ChatGPT 4 is not yet available. It's only for the plus users. So I'm not 100% sure whether it was 3.5 or 4.
All right. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, this is interesting. Deepak wants to know, how can we ensure that AI-driven test automation tools maintain compliance with data privacy regulations like GDPR and CCPA during the testing process?
Oh, it's a tough one, Deepak. It's a tough question. I don't know how we can ensure that. But if you're going to use any AI tool, then you better make sure you're asking it very, very focused, specific questions, which is not going to disclose any confidential information. So for example, I had that one piece of code, right, just pointing it to a website for a programming site, asking it a very specific question, how to implement it. That question could be implementing using some complex tree algorithms or anything else. But taking that solution, you make it your own and then implement it in your organization. That might be safer than disclosing anything more. This is a very new area right now. It's better to be on the side of caution than disclose more. For that matter, I strongly debate going back to my old candy bar cell phone, which has no screen, no touch screen. It just works as a phone, nothing else. Because I don't know what all information is being tracked from my phone right now. But that's the reality we are in. We are the product. We are not the users of the product. We are the product.
All right. Interesting. All right. Next question. Any suggestions on how to embed ChatGPT or AI into automation testing efforts as a process more than an individual benefit?
Again, a tough question. I unfortunately do not have an answer to this yet. It is something that needs to be explored and figured out. But one thing I will add over there, right? Each product is different, even though it may be similar to many others. Each product is different. The processes, tech stacks are going to be varying for all these types of products, what you use for testing and automation. So one solution is not going to fit to anyone. Auto-generated code will go up to a certain level, but at least as of now, the human mind is still very essential to use it correctly. So it's not going to solve your problems, it is going to make it easier. What I showed as examples, is a way to make it easier in your own case, assuming, of course, based on the privacy concerns, data privacy concerns that we spoke about.
Okay. How effective would AI be for API and NFR? Also, in recent times, NFR is gaining much more momentum than before.
Well, NFRs have always been around for that matter. It's not just now. Probably things go viral much more easily now than before. That's why NFRs become much more important. But it's a tool, it's a question that you ask to the tool related to this. So if I may, I could see, okay, I could ask a question, give me performance test implementation approach for Amazon website. I'm pretty sure this is going to not work. I thought I would be timed out. But yeah, it's giving me a performance test strategy. If I ask it a question, give me an implementation detail, what tool should I use? It is probably going to suggest me a few tools. If I ask me build a initial script for automating this performance, it probably is going to do that for me as well. It all depends on the questions you are asking to proceed from there. And I'm sure you'll get good insights for NFRs as well.
All right. I'm going to close the polls we had earlier and share the votes on those while we get people have a minute to get the last couple of questions in. So we ask the audience, do you still think AI tools will replace non-automated testing? And it looks like about half the audience says no, but a lot of maybes in there. What do you think about that?
I think there's some conversion happening here based on the examples we are seeing. And I am in the maybe bucket right now. I'm not saying yes. Earlier, I used to be a hard no, but now slowly, steadily, I'm moving towards a maybe. Or rather, I am a maybe right now, and it's going slowly, steadily towards yes in that sense, right? Because the tools are getting really mature. Technology is getting very powerful. What remains is, can you train the tools and technologies based on your context of the product and application? All these tools are based on learnings from external tools, public-facing tools. What about internal tools, which is not out in the market, right? So that context, as soon as we are able to train the tools on individual context, I think it's going to get even more better, the type of results that we see.
And then, are you still worried about AI replacing your role? Pretty confident no's here, but again, a little bit, maybe a little shift happening here.
There may be, but I'm in a no bucket in this one because I know right now it cannot, right? But I can definitely take a lot of help from these tools to make my life easier. So the way automation was thought of to reduce manual testing and give more time for exploratory testing, AI tools is definitely going to help me reduce my manual testing, make my automation faster, and that gives me more time to do other activities which I did not have time to do.
Okay, we've got, if you don't mind, Anand, time for maybe 2 more questions. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right. We've got a question here from Jay. Looks like Applitools uses the cloud. Our organization is very particular about the intellectual property protection, and they might deny us from using third-party cloud tools. What's the solution you can provide?
It's actually a very easy solution, Shilpa. Applitools uses the public cloud. I use the public cloud for my learning and training and demos that I do. But a lot of our customers, they actually use the dedicated cloud instance, which is hosted only for them, only they have access to that. So that takes care of the security concerns that might be there. And we do work with the customers to ensure from a compliance perspective, security perspectives, all the questions are answered, all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed to make sure everything conforms as per their standards. But for any more details, I would request you to join the Applitools table in the networking area, where we can definitely talk more about this aspect. And Elliot is also responding. On-prem is also available for most of the Applitools product. So definitely catch up with Elliot and team after this session to know more about this.
All right. And then one final question. Do you think AI can improve quality of life for automation engineers working on mobile app testing or mostly
Of course
web
it
and
does. This is about demos, right? Write a login test for Amazon mobile app using Appium and Java. Okay, it had to time out at this point. So refresh. And am I in? Am I in? Yes, here we go. Still loading. Let's see. Sure. Here's an example of that. It works for mobile, it works for anything that you want. You just have to try it out. Be specific with your questions. What I learned from using ChatGPT is you need to learn the art of asking the questions. It is very important in any communication, but now it is becoming very important in communicating with tools as well to get you the right type of responses.
Excellent.
So hope that helps.
All right, and I think that's all we have time for today. I do want to thank everyone for your attendance, for your questions, for your chat. Be looking for an email tomorrow with a link to the session recording, Anand's presentation deck, where you'll be able to see the links shared. And if I know Anand, there'll probably be a blog post coming sometime soon as well with a little bit more follow-up information.
Putting me on the spot, Pam. Sure.
You can take advantage of AI today by using Applitools to test web apps, mobile apps, desktop apps, PDFs, screenshots, and more. Applitools offers SDKs that support several popular testing frameworks in multiple languages, and these SDKs install directly into your projects for seamless integration. You can try it yourself by claiming a free account at applitools.info/4x0. There's also a link in the chat and in the resources tab. And if you have questions or want to see a personalized demo, Anand mentioned that Elliot and our team are here. You can also get in touch with them, schedule a demo at a time that's convenient for you. Applitools.info L9C. Again, there's a link in the chat and in the resources tab. And if you'd like to learn more about the upcoming self-healing test execution cloud that Anand demoed, you can visit applitools.info UQR, and again, that's in the chat, to register for an upcoming session with our CTO and the inventor of visual AI, Adam Carmi. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, thank you for joining. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Namaste.